Good morning. It's a fun Friday on Coffee with Karma. And again, I've got my Svengoolie mug and look at this. I'm a writer, right? So I've got my writing sweatshirt on there. And I'm going to invite you today to dream a little dream of your future life as an author. Now, I know every one of us has a secret fantasy about being an author that we might be a little bit, mm, embarrassed to admit because it seems so grandiose. But what if I told you that at least some of those daydreams could come true? Today, in this episode, I'm gonna share some stories of author success that play to those secret little fun dreams that we have as authors. Hi, my name is Carma Spence, and I help entrepreneurs write a client attracting book in 90 days or less. Now, the first story I think is one of the best stories. I read this story in a Facebook group. A woman was sharing her own personal experience. She had one book published, self published, it was a novel, and she was working on the second book. And she tells this story where she was in her local grocery store. I don't know, maybe in the paper towel aisle or something. And as she's going down the aisle, a woman coming from the opposite direction says, "Hey, are you," whatever her name was. And she goes, "Yes." She's like, "Stay right there." And then she runs off. And so the author is kind of like going, "What? What's going on here?" The woman comes back with a copy of the author's book in her hand and says, "Will you sign this?" I read this, I'm like, "That is so cool. How awesome to just be randomly living your life and have a complete stranger come up and say, 'I read your book. Will you sign my copy?'" And it's not like she was a published by a big name. It wasn't like she was J.K. Rowling or something. She was just like you and me, an everyday author who self-published, and she had a fan. The second s It's actually more of a set of stories, it's actually from my own life. Public Speaking Superpowers, which became bestseller in 3 categories and won 3 awards, not only is the best book I've written so far, hopefully the ones that some of the ones I write next year will be better, you never know, or at least as good, has helped me fulfill some of those little secret fantasies. So the first story, and this just it's still like I feel so honored. One of the p I interviewed like 99 professional speakers. Either that's their business being a speaker or they use speaking to grow their business for this book. About 89 of them made it into the book, and one of them, who's a fairly well-respected speaker, he posted on social media that he was reading it for the 3rd time because he enjoyed it so much. I mean, he didn't even need to read it the first time, and here it was reading it the 3rd time. He didn't he didn't need the information. He's a professional speaker, and here he is reading my book that's actually aimed at beginners. It's basically a public speaking course in a book, and I just that just made me feel so good. My second story is one of the, reviews I got was from a person who speaks professionally in his business. He's not a professional speaker, he's actually a teacher, but he speaks for a living, and he's also an author, and he said that not only was it very well written, but he wished he had it when he was first starting out because it gave all the tips and advice and some of the advice that he hadn't even thought of yet. So, I mean, that's 2 people who really know their stuff, affirming my book. But the 3rd story is the real. the real thing. Now, I actually have had people tell me that they've read the book and it's changed their life. But this woman, I was at a conference in which I was one of the speakers on the stage, so I had my books for sale in the back. And it really wasn't my audience. I think I sold 1 book. But this but it was worth everything for this one moment. This woman came up to me in the back of the room, and she said, "I'm not gonna buy the book because I already have it." And "Oh, that's wonderful. How'd you hear about it?" Oh my gosh. She belonged to Toastmasters, but a Toastmasters that wasn't even anywhere close to my at the time I was a Toastmaster, I was in the LA area. She's from Northern California, so not a lot of connection there. Somebody in her club got wind of the book, read it, loved it, did a speech in the Toastmasters group, based on my book, and so this woman bought the book and loved it. I mean, it's like, wow, my book's in the grapevine. That was there's small things, but there's just when you find out that complete strangers have read and loved your book, and when respected people read and love your book, it makes you feel good. That's why it's worthwhile to write a quality book. It doesn't have to be a long book, although Public Speaking Superpower is 200 some odd pages. It doesn't have to be that long, but it does need to be quality. Anyway, third story. I found this story. I mean, I read a bunch of stories to share today, but I really liked this story, and I read this one on Readsy, which is a UK-based website that helps authors market and find editors and things like that. So, Mark Dawson was a lawyer who dreamed of being an author of thrillers. So he wrote his first 2 books, and they were traditionally published, but they didn't get the attention they needed, and they just sort of wasted away into nothing. So he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he self-published. And the rest is history, 'cause listen to this. It took just a few short years for Mark to sell millions of copies of his work worldwide. He has established multiple series, and he pulls in a 7-figure publishing income with his thrillers, self-published. I mean, who doesn't dream of pulling in millions of dollars and selling millions of copies? And most people who do that are traditionally published because they have a traditional publisher, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be. And a lot of other people who make it to those bestseller roads and sub-million are in anthology books where multiple authors are coming together and marketing. This guy did it on his own. That's the dream, right? That's the dream. I would love to sell 1,000,000 copies. I haven't, and honestly, it hasn't mattered because each book has accomplished what I had set out for that book to accomplish. Some have accomplished even more, but these are the possibilities. Yes, if you become an author, when you become an author, you can be stopped in a local grocery store or your local Walmart by someone who's read your book. You can find posts on social media that talk about how your book changed their life. And if you market it well and you get the right niche, you could sell millions of copies. It the dream isn't just a pipe dream. It can happen, and it can happen to you, but you gotta start. And if you would like a quick start, I've got you covered. If you would like if you would like a copy of the Quick Start Guide to Writing Your Authority Building Short Book, which is free, just drop a comment below and I will send you the link. This is Karma ending this Coffee with Karma and saying ciao for now. See you next week.